Hello, everybody, and welcome to Author in the Spotlight, which is your chance to meet the authors in our upcoming book, all around the theme of grief. Today, we are joined by the lovely Emily. Hello, Emily, how are you?
Hi, Cassie. Yeah, not bad, thank you. How are you?
Good, I am okay, thank you very much. So, without further ado, I'm just going to hand straight over to you for you to give us just a little bit of an introduction, who you are, what you enjoy, what you do, all of that sort of stuff.
So I'm Emily. I'm a really creative person. I live in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, so I'm very grateful that the beach is on my doorstep. Um, I love nature. I've got my baby cousins, who I absolutely adore, even though they're growing up very quickly and they're very naughty. They're like my best friends. Love my Alfie, the therapy dog. Love my guitar, love singing, love piano. For me, I do a lot of lived experience work in the areas of neurodiversity, eating disorders, suicide, gambling addiction, autism, disability, and training and project work and speaking in those experiences. And I do lots of roles, as you know, within all of that and deliver projects, deliver services, to empower and hopefully give some hope to people. I like to just be my authentic self and just make a difference where I can to people's lives and change people's lives and hopefully empower somebody with my experiences.
Amazing. And thank you for being with us today. And I love how you've used your journey in a positive way to try and help others. I think that that's an amazing thing to do, and is one of the many reasons I do the books and the summit and everything else that I do. Um, so what was it that wanted you to be involved in this book on grief?
Yeah, grief is a big word, and I think we all it's a human thing we all go through, isn't it? It's a natural thing we all experience sadly in our lives. It's whether grief can lead to anything, and I think for me, I never kind of shared about anything experiences of grief I went through with people, and I think for me, because I'm neurodiverse, and obviously that got picked up eventually in 2017, writing about my experiences actually is how I tell my story and my life experiences, and it helps open up conversations. And I think, that what I'm with, with what I share, I think it actually, if people go through certain areas of grief and they don't hear about it anywhere else, but they pick up a book and they read it, it might help their journey. It might help them resonate with something and actually go, I can resonate to this person's experience. And it might encourage them to maybe get their own support or, work on themselves to understand. And I think it's just trying to give some hope and, in such a difficult experience, because grief is a life event. It happens to all of us. And we just need, if we don't have those resources or support or understanding to deal with it, from those around us, actually picking up from somebody that's been there can be one of the most empowering, life-changing things and life-saving things, I think, which is really important.
Yeah, totally. And it is, and grief can be it can feel quite isolating at times. You can feel like you're the only one that's feeling this way, and with all the things that society put in about time frames and stages and everything, which I do mention that in the introduction. It can sometimes feel a very isolating process, and not everybody knows how to talk about it. So as you say, having something that can be, picked up or put on a Kindle or whatever it is, it just hopefully will help people know that they're not alone in that. So
That's just massive. And I
that's
think as well, also, if people don't talk about it around you, but you want to talk about it, like actually picking up a book might give them that conversation and be like,
yeah,
I've read about this, this resonates to my experience, and then it might spark a conversation.
yeah, yeah. And it is a weird one, and that was one of the reasons why, trying not to divert too much, that I wanted to do the book, was because it does unfortunately happen. Grief will happen to everybody. It's a given, because it isn't just about around, the death of somebody. It's around all sorts of things, yet it is sort of not spoken about in a very open way. So hopefully our stories will help other people. And how did you find the process of writing? I mean, I know you've been in numerous books and you've done, a lot of works, but how did this differ in any way? And how did you find it?
Yeah, I think this one was a bit of a, all our books are different and diverse in all that they are that we've done, isn't? But I think this one particularly, it was focusing so much like on our actual lived experience. Like obviously our book, all the books share about our lived experience, but it's more practical ways and like examples. And but I think this had to really touch on our own lived experiences and our own, personal journeys. And I think for me writing it was a journey, but it was, I had to take my time with it, absolutely, because I was like, whoa, I'm doing some stuff here. But actually it was therapeutic for me because it took me on that journey of what I went through, and actually it helped me to reflect because I'm such a reflective person. It's like, well, actually I've been through this horrible experience of grief, and but actually it's helped me to think about that and helped me to think about what I still need to do for myself to support my journey of growing through that grief, or supporting those around me that have been through that grief, and how I learn with it and learn to live with it. And actually writing is such a therapeutic way to deal with it, and you can see the journey you've been on and the journey it's taking you on now, and it's a positive way to deal with things and not a destructive way like maybe I would have dealt with grief in the past. I think actually it's a healing journey for me, which has been really important, and it's helped to make sense of it and break it down.
Yeah, I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased that that happened for you. And I find the same. I find that it is very cathartic, and although it is very, very difficult, it gives you almost that sense of, we can reflect, and then maybe we can be open to be giving ourselves a little bit of compassion because actually it's been, you know, awful.
Mm.
And so it can sometimes help you think actually, and actually acknowledging those things, which is what grief is about. It's acknowledging you can't change it, but it's acknowledging it and feeling it and then sort of trying to find a way through that. And I think that by writing you can reflect on everything and then come out the other side. So I'm really pleased that it helped in your journey. And so just to as we're coming to the end of the interview, just without giving too much away, but letting the people watching know, what does your chapter cover? What is it about?
Yeah, it's my chapter. When we were given the task, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to cover? Because all my grief experiences, sadly, but I speak about losing my uncle suddenly and unexpectedly. So, you know, I think when you have really close people in your life that you have around you, your support network, and when they're suddenly not there because they've passed, so I speak about, because, some bereavements, like we said, we plan, but my uncle's was very, very sudden, he was like there and then 24 hours later he wasn't. So it's understanding that journey of what I went through and of what happened, and everything that happened behind that, because when you lose someone that's very close to you, yeah, my uncle was my best friend. That was, yeah, it was like I wasn't prepared for it. In my head, he was a healthy person and he had all these years ahead of him, and then all of a sudden it's like, hang on a minute, he's not here. And I only spoke to him 3 days before that, and then suddenly he's dead. And it's just, I didn't deal with it at the time, and it's only been in the last sort of couple of years that I've started to deal with it myself. It was 2022, sudden bereavement, and I think it's covering that actually, it happened suddenly, but actually how I learned to cope with it wasn't good at the time. I didn't deal with it in a positive way, and it's only been in the last sort of year and a half, really, that I've started to deal with it in a better way by talking about it and using different coping strategies and not poor coping strategies. I think it's sharing about how we can try and manage unexpected grief and how we can build ourselves up to be resilient. I mean, it's a really hard thing to do, isn't it? Because you can't prepare yourself for grief at any point, and it's about, for me, it's holding on to those memories and keeping his memory alive and those important memories I had with him alive, and how that's kept me going, and how I take that forward in my everyday life, because that's given me something to keep going for and hold close to me, which is really important. And I think as well it shares in there, obviously, yes, I did go down the rails of, gambling, self-harm, everything to deal with losing my uncle, and even prior to that. But actually there is, with the right help and the right hope and the right support, you don't need to use those ways of coping to run away from what you're feeling. You can ask for help and find a way through it, and you're never going to forget that person, but you can come to a place where you can be as healed as possible and learn to live with it and not run away from it, and and understand it better. And hopefully, by talking about unexpected loss and why that might happen and the effects of that, how you can then turn that around and try and understand that journey and grow with it and take that forwards to help yourself and help others.
Yeah, and that's a really, really powerful and good point. It's so difficult, and it's, I'm sure many people, myself included, went down the unhealthy coping strategies because it just doesn't seem obvious what's out there. Like it isn't as obvious. So I'm hoping that in some way, this will just sort of bring to light that there are people out there, there are other ways of dealing with it. And as you said, you don't have to go through the unhealthy stuff before getting to the healthier ways of coping with it. Not that there is any judgment with how anybody deals with it, because it is a completely unique journey. But yeah, that's a really valid point. So if people resonate with your chapter, I would, it's a powerful chapter, the same as all of them, and I would strongly recommend that you buy the book to read Emily's chapter. And if people resonate with it and want to reach out with you, your Linktree link will be with the interview, so people will be able to find the best way to contact you on that link. And then just before we wrap up today, is there anything else that you wanted to say or add, or do you think that we've covered everything that we needed to?
It's just like a final thing. I think it's just grief is your journey. Don't be ashamed by how you cope with it or experience it or understand it, because it's unique to you, and it's okay that you're dealing with it like that, but maybe know that yes, you're dealing with it that way, but actually there is help and hope and support out there, and there is a network and a community of people when you find the right people, and it's okay to talk about it and and share about that experience. And hopefully our chapters can then give you that guidance and that understanding and take you on that journey, and hopefully give you that support you need and build you up and take you forwards of where you want to be. And it just gives you that hope to hold on to that loss that you've had, and keep that person in your memory and keep that alive in all that you do.
Yeah, lovely. And that's a lovely way to end the interview. So thank you so much for your time today, Emily. I appreciate you are very busy, so appreciate your time here. And do join us again for another author in the spotlight very soon. But for today, we will say bye bye. Bye, everybody.